In the name of the Father, and Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God, Amen. It's a beautiful celebration that we're celebrating the feast of our patron saint with this beautiful church of ours, St. Mina. And when I was thinking about what talk to give about St. Mina, or something to inspire us as youth about St. Mina, the verse came across, which we all know from Romans, from St. Paul, by St. Paul, Romans 12, when he said, present your bodies a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove that is good and acceptable and the perfect will of God. This verse is so applicable to the life of St. Mina. Just quickly for people who don't know, St. Mina was actually martyred at the age of 24 years. He was a very young man, 24 years. So all these things that we hear about his life happened in that very short space of time. And we're very privileged and honored that we can call him the Egyptian saint because he was Egyptian, born in Egypt. But if you look at his life story, he went through a very difficult time when he was young. First of all, he came at an old age. His parents didn't have children. So you know how his name came about? All the Minas he should know, okay? So you can't put your hand up. So his parents didn't have any kids, and his mother one day went during the feast of St. Mary, and she was very sorrowful, and she was very sad when she saw mothers with their kids running around the church, and she prayed very hard in front of the icon of St. Mary, and she was pleading with God to have a child. And she heard a sound or voice coming from the icon saying, Amen. And she received that message that God has accepted her prayer, and she went home and told her husband, and they said, let it be according to God's will. So she fell pregnant, she gave birth to St. Mina, and they wanted to call him another name, but she said, no, we'll call him Mina. It's the same letters that from the sound or the voice that she heard, Amen. But we see that it sounds good up to this stage, but St. Mina actually, his father passed away, went to heaven at the age of 11, when he was only 11 years old. Only 11 years old, his father passed away. And only 3 years later, his mother passed away as well. So at the age of 14, he was an orphan. At the age of 14, imagine that. At the age of 14, he had no father, no mother. You would expect someone with these circumstances to be shaken, to be asking questions, why God, why God? And for his faith to be shaken, but it did not shake him at all. Not just that, at the age of 15, so 1 year later he joined the Roman army, and they gave him a high rank in the army at the age of 15. So by the age of 15, all this happened to him. Someone in his age would have probably did something different. If you look at someone now at the age of 14, someone year 8, for example, can you just imagine someone that age group? Very young. They went through all this difficult time. At the age of 14, he had no father, no mother. What did he do? He did not shake. He came closer to Christ. And we can ask the servants to get all the kids outside because that's for everyone. So this service is for everyone. So there's no kids club, there's no youth for Christ. Everyone should be in this church, English speaking. So we see that when he joined the army at the age of 15, he was loved by everyone because he was very kind to everyone who was loving. But then what happened at that time, Diocletian, the king, he ordered the decree that people worship idols. He left the army and went into the desert for 5 years, praying and living a life of solitude for 5 years. And then while he was praying, he heard a voice saying, he saw a vision, and he saw the skies open, and he saw angels actually putting crowns on the heads of the martyrs. And he knew that these people got martyred, and he longed to be martyred. And he actually went back to the city and declared his faith to be martyred. And you know the rest of the story. Obviously tried to entice him. He refused. He got tortured a lot. And then finally he was martyred. But we can see from his life that he went through many difficult periods, and he could have easily gave in to it, but he didn't. He didn't. And he did not conform to the world. That's why I started by reading that verse. He did not conform to the world. He did not follow what normal people in his age group would do. But he knew he had one mission in his life, is to be close to God and to live his life for God. I forgot to mention, by the way, that his parents were very rich. So when they passed away, they left him a huge inheritance. And he took that when he went, he took that and he gave it to the poor. He distributed all his inheritance among the poor. He didn't take anything with him. Again, at that age, who would be thinking in that age about these things with that level of wisdom and maturity? It's because you can see his life is with God. So he did not conform to the world. We hear this word a lot, or this verse a lot, do not be conformed to the world. What does that mean? And what are we actually called to do? What are we actually called to do in this world? God is telling us, do not be conformed to this world. Okay, so what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to leave the world and run and live on an island? Is that what God expects us to do? Of course not. Because in the last prayer when our Lord Jesus Christ was praying to the Father, he said, I ask you, Father, not to take them out of this world, but to keep them from the evil one. So God's plan for us is not to be separated from the world and to go away and exclude ourselves. This is only for selected people who becomes monks and nuns. But all of us as Christians are expected to live in the world. And what's the best evidence of that? Because our Lord Jesus Christ, he said, you are the light of the world. You are the salt of the earth. So that means we're expected to be part of the world on the earth and be a light and a salt to the people. So when we say do not be conformed, we're saying do not take the shape of these people on earth. So we need to be with them. We need to live in the world. We need to go about our everyday business, but not to take the form or the shape of the normal people. Why? Because we are unique. We're different. I'm sure you hear this many times, but what does it mean? Why are we different? What makes us different? Why are we different? It's because we take on a new nature when we get baptized. At St. Paul, a beautiful verse he said here in Romans chapter 6, St. Paul says, therefore, we were buried with him, Christ, through baptism into death, that just as Christ was raised from the dead by the glory of the Father, even so we also should walk in newness of life, a new life. So we are buried with our Lord Jesus Christ in baptism into death, and we rise with him. And what happens when we rise after we get baptized? We become a new person, we take a new nature. That's why we need to lead a new life. The old person is gone. We have to have a new life. And then we'll ask ourselves, but how can we actually lead a holy life in a world around us? That's very hard. It is very hard. I agree, it's very hard. And God knows it's very hard. And that's why he did not leave us alone. He equipped us and gives us many qualities and many capabilities and many tools and weapons to be able to defeat the enemy. This is exactly what happened with the people of Israel when they left Egypt with Moses and they went into the wilderness. Before they entered, the first war they entered before they entered any wars, God was preparing them to face the enemy. He sent them, what did he do for them? He threw the blood of the lamb they put on the doorposts. He saved them. He saved the firstborn through the blood that was on the doorposts. That represents the blood of Christ. And then they crossed the Red Sea. That was what? Sign of baptism. And then they went, and in the desert, he sent them food, the manna, Holy Communion, and he sent them the water from the rock. The rock was Christ. And they saw Moses open his arms like that, and the sign of the cross for them to win. So God prepared the people and gave them all these things to equip them to be able to face the enemy. This is exactly what He does with us. He equips us to be able to defeat the enemy and to live as righteous, as holy people in the world. We should never say that we cannot do it, because God is fair. God will never ask us to do something that we can't do, and He will never leave us alone. In the Old Testament, it was very hard. It was very hard. Why? Because they're not equipped with that. They did not have the Holy Spirit in them, as in each one of us who gets baptized now. And we are able to do many great things because of the power that God has given us. So don't underestimate your power. Don't think you are just another number. If you, for example, let's take the verse, you're the light of the world. Okay? The world is darkness, full of evil, but we are expected to be a light of the world. I'll ask myself, will I make a difference? I'm just one person, you know? We're a minority. I'm just one person. What can I do? You can do so much. One person can do so much. Imagine if I turn all the lights off in the church now. Imagine that. If I turn all these lights off, if I light one candle, do you think will make a difference? What do you think? If everything is pitch dark, I light one candle in the whole church. Do you think will make a difference? You think the light, we can see the light? Yes, you will. Why? Because it's dark. And that's why the world needs us more. The more evil in the world, the more that the Christians are needed in the world to be that light, to be that candle. Don't underestimate the power or the ability that God has given you. One person can change the world. Look at the salt. When He says you are the salt of the earth, what does it mean? What does the salt do? What's the role of the salt? You can answer me, guys. It's a big church. I feel lost, but you know. So here's flavor, yes. Excellent. One thing, flavor. What does the salt do? Flavor. So it gives taste to the food. What else? One more thing. Acts as, anyone in the food industry? Anyone? Exactly. Preserves the food. So preserves the food from what? From being corrupted, from getting rotten. As a Christian, I do these two qualities in the world. You need a small amount of salt that will change the whole taste of the food. As a Christian, I may be by myself, but small amounts of salt in big pots of food can make a huge difference. As a Christian, I can make that difference. And this is the message. We can make a difference. Do not underestimate what you can do in this world. And as well, preserve. Why? Because we preserve, again, the small amount of salt can preserve things from going wrong. We can preserve the world from going into chaos. As a Christian, I need to live in the world, but not allow the world to live in me. If you see like a bird, you know, on the waters, cruising, it's a very nice view, very nice thing to look. You see a beautiful bird cruising on the surface of the water. Everything's fine. But if the water comes into the bird, it's not a nice scenery anymore. It's a disaster. People are going to drown. And it only takes a small hole to drown the whole bird. So we as Christians are like that bird. We need to flirt on the world. We are in the world. We're part of the world. But we're flirting on top of the world like the bird. We cannot allow ourselves to let any small amount of water from the world into our bird, otherwise we're going to sink. And this is the role that we need to play. We need to be in the world so we can be the light to the world and the salt to the earth, to light to people and to show them to Christ. But at the same time, we cannot let the world come inside us, otherwise we'll drown. Can you see? It's a fine line. It's a fine line. And sometimes storms will happen around us in the boat. We need to steer the boat to make sure it arrives safely. There's many storms that may happen around us. There's many temptations that happen around us, trying to sink the boat. But as a Christian, I need to be strong. Like Saint Mina here. You found all the saints. They were young, but they were very strong. They're very courageous. If you go into the details of Saint Mina, you'll see how he responded to the people that were torturing him. While he was being tortured, for example, one of the emperors who was torturing him, he said, how does it feel now to be tortured? Do you feel the pain? Is it worth it? He said, yes, it's worth it, because this pain is getting me greater glory in heaven. How strong is that? Someone who's 24 saying that. Very strong person. He left a lot behind. Because sometimes we think, okay, if I'm going to follow what you're talking about, Abuna, I'm going to lose a lot. I'm going to lose a lot. I may lose my friends. I might lose my position at work or my status. I might lose some money. I might not make the same profit that if I do a bit of, cheating with some paperwork or, tax returns, I might get more money. If I walk right, then I'll lose something. I agree with you. You'll lose something. But that's normal. Expect to lose something. Expect that discipleship with Christ comes at a price. In the Bible, you find that Lord Jesus Christ told the disciples, count the cost of the discipleship. Whoever wants to be my disciple, let him what? Carry. Remember? Carry his cross and follow me. That's a cost. That could be a loss. There could be pain. There could be suffering. There could be financial loss. There could be whatever loss. Friendship, relationships. Could be anything. Could be anything. So that's normal. That's expected as a Christian. But if I really, really understand what's my mission in life and what are my priorities in life and get my priorities right, I can say with St. Paul when he said what? I count all this as rubbish for the knowledge of God. I count all this as rubbish. St. Paul lost a lot. St. Paul was a very famous, he was a philosopher, he was a leader, he was well known, he had very high status. He said, no, I don't care about all that. All this, I count it as rubbish. All this is rubbish just to know Christ. And this is what exactly St. Mina did. He counted all things as nothing. They're worthless compared to the knowledge of Christ. And for us as Christians, the Bible gave us many examples or many models to be able to follow and to know that what is expected of us. So we all know about the salt and the light. Do you know as well that the Bible gives us other examples as a Christian? Like St. Paul said in 2 Corinthians, he said, For we are to God the fragrance of Christ among those who are being saved and among those who are perishing. This is in 2 Corinthians chapter 2. St. Paul says, For we are to God the fragrance of Christ. As a Christian, I need to have that fragrance, nice smell. And you can see that whenever we anoint the relics of the saints, they smell so nice. Even my hands still smell nice after anointing the relic of Saint Mina. Why? Because these saints represent the fragrance of Christ. They diffuse this nice fragrance, so anyone, you come just pass by the relics and you can smell that fragrance. We as Christians, every one of us, need to be able to diffuse that fragrance of Christ. What does that mean? People need to, when they deal with us, they need to see Christ in us. It's not easy. But are we Christ-like in our dealings with people? Whenever we deal with people, not just in church, outside, when we deal with people outside and people in the church and with our family at home and our work, at uni, at school, whenever we go, when we actually deal with people, do we actually diffuse that fragrance? Do people smell something beautiful about us? Something makes us different from the rest of the world. And this is not, God is not just expecting us to diffuse this fragrance just between the believers and the people that we know. No, he said everyone. Look at the verse. It says, For we are to God the fragrance of Christ among those who are being saved, so this is the Christians, like he, and among those who are perishing as well. So we need to be Christ-like in front of everyone. How else would people who are away from God get to know God? This is our job. We forget that. We forget it's our job. Many people out there who don't even know about Christ. Who's going to tell them about Christ? How are they going to find out? How are they going to find out? There has to be a means. We are God has sent us out there in the world as ambassadors for Him. And this is the other example that the Bible mentions. We are ambassadors for Christ. But what can an ambassador do? What's an ambassador? It's one person who belongs to one country, goes and lives in one country for a few years, representing his original country. So you have an ambassador, for example, from America. One person comes in the American embassy here in Australia. He represents America. Is he an Australian citizen? No, he's not. He's an American citizen. And he represents his country, America. So whatever he does, as if America's doing that. So he has to be very careful everything that he does, because he's being looked at closely, because he's diffusing the fragrance of the country he's coming from. He's doing the work that the country he's coming from, original country, wants him to do. But he's one person. He's only one person. But he'll make a huge difference. One person. One person living in a country full of millions of citizens from another country. This is exactly like us. We are citizens from heaven. Our homeland, home country is heaven. We come here on earth as ambassadors, as strangers. We even send the message, we are strangers in this world. We are sojourners in this world. We come, and what? Our mission is to tell people about the other country. Tell them, that's what heaven's going to look like. Look at me, this is my hometown. My country is back there. And this is what it's going to be like to live in that country. So people say, yes, I love your country, I want to go back with you to your country. How do I do that? You have to meet Christ. So we are the bridge between, so people can come to Christ. Am I aware of my role? Or am I feel like my role is just to come to church and just go out and do the usual meetings and prayers? That's not my role. My role is to come here, to be charged with these things, so I can go out there and do my job. Imagine each one of us is like a rechargeable battery. We come and get charged here, and then go out there and use that power to be able to spread it and do all the functions out in the world. And then we come back, get recharged, and then go outside and use that recharging power to do the good works to people. This is our role. And people will see that if I'm genuinely Christian, and if I'm actually displaying or revealing the characteristics of God to people, people will see that. There's a story about Abuna Mikhail Ibrahim. He was a very famous priest. He was actually the confession father of many bishops, and even he was a confession father one stage for Pope Shenouti himself. He was a very holy man, Abuna Mikhail Ibrahim. And before he became a priest, he was working in a normal job with non-Christians, and his boss was a non-Christian. And one day he came to him and told him, you're a wonderful man. You have beautiful virtues. Like everyone loves you and everyone, respects you. You're a beautiful person. You're excellent personality, character. You've got everything perfect, except one thing you miss. One thing if you just have that one thing, that's it. He said, what is that? He said, you are a Christian. That's your problem. He said, you're a Christian. He told him that. What do you think Abuna Mikhail replied and said? What do you think? Any guesses? What would you reply in that case? By the way, this is very common in Egypt. It actually happened with someone, a close relative of mine. Exactly the same thing. And he said, if only you're not Christian, you would have went up the ladder and became someone great. But in that, Abuna Mikhail Ibrahim, what did he reply and say? You know what he told him? He told his boss, all these good things that you see in me, that's because I am a Christian. If it wasn't for my Christianity, I wouldn't have all these things that you just praised me about. That's what he told him. And this is true. You find the Christian person have all these virtues and characteristics because he is a Christian. It's a reflection of Christ. And we see all the saints having this because they reflect Christ. When our Lord Jesus Christ said, you are the light of the world, he also said, I am the light. Remember? He said, I'm the light, and then later he said, you are the light of the world. So what does that mean? He's the light and we're the light as well? It's a bit confusing. The best way to look at it is like the relationship between the sun and the moon. The sun gives light. Is the moon by itself gives light? What do you think? Anyone knows science? Does the moon give light by itself? No? Where does the moon get light from? The sun. So the moon reflects the light of the sun. So imagine our Lord Jesus Christ is the sun and we are the moon. We give light to a dark world. Why? But we get that light from the sun. It's because the sun reflects its light to the moon shines. But how come the moon doesn't always shine? Remember, sometimes the moon is dark. Have you ever looked at the moon one night? And actually, where's the moon? It's there, but it's dark. Have you noticed that? It's dark. It's not lighting at all. When does that happen? Anyone know astrology? When does that happen? When does the moon comes dark? It's not lighting up. Shadow of the sun. Be more specific. Be close. At the point where the earth comes in the middle between the sun and the moon. So it actually blocks the rays of the sun reaching the moon. Can you see how we can benefit from that in our spiritual life? The sun, God, we the moon. The earth comes in the middle, the moon is not shining anymore. That's what happens with us as Christians. When the world comes in the middle between me and God, I'm not shining anymore. I can't shine. I can't shine. See the same thing, for example, with, when I'm talking about example, the world, obviously the lusts and the desires of the world, and I get preoccupied with worldly things, then that's it. My concern, my worries, my priorities, I'll be focused. All I can see is the earth. And then I can't see Christ behind the earth, behind the materialistic things. And that's why I'll never shine as a Christian. Same thing with the salt. It says, if the salt loses its flavor, it's what? It has no meaning, has no value. When will the salt lose its flavor? When do you think that happens? When? If I wet it? A lot of science questions today. Huh? No, even if you wet it, you can still use it. But what happens when you actually mix the salt with a lot of, for example, a lot of sand or a lot of dirt? We'll get lost in that dirt. It's not going to do its job properly. Same thing. When we get lost in the earth and we get mixed with whatever the world is doing, we'll lose our flavor. We'll lose our preservative nature. We can't do our job properly because we are so distracted and mixed with the world. But can you see anything common between all these different things I mentioned? I mentioned 4 things. I mentioned we're the light of the world, we're the salt of the earth, the fragrance of Christ, we are the ambassadors of Christ. What are the common things between these 4 things? If we say a light, like a candle, we say a little bit of salt, we say an ambassador, we say fragrance. What do you think anything common between them? Anyone thinking tonight? Are we talking about big things or a lot of quantities? Are we? No, like an ambassador, just an ambassador is one person, yeah? So a candle, light a candle in the church will make a difference. A little bit of salt, some perfume and a fragrance. All of them are small amounts. They're not big amounts. What I'm trying to get at is sometimes we think because we are a minority, we're not going to have an influence. You know, we'll always be a minority. That's fine. We need to accept that. But we can't let that distract us from our job. Don't think that because you're only 1 or 2 or 3 Christians in the whole workplace, you're not going to make a difference. You will. Or at uni, or at school, or in your job, whatever you do, you will make a difference. You will make a difference. Even if you're small. Because it only needs a small amount of salt. It only needs a candle to light up. It only needs a little bit of amount of yeast. That's another thing I forgot to mention. The yeast, the work of the yeast. A small amount of yeast will help in the whole amount of when we bake. Small amount. You only put a small amount of yeast. Takes care of a big amount. This is us. We actually need to understand our impact even though we are not big in numbers. So what do we want to do? We want to learn tonight from the life of Saint Mina to stand up for what is right, to have the courage to not to be conformed to this world, to have the courage to say, I am a Christian and I'm not going to worship these idols. See, many times when I was reading his story, because we read too many stories in Exarium, it becomes so common to us. Yeah, you know, he went and he said, I'm a Christian. They said, no, you're going to kill you. He said, no problems. Yeah, I'm fine. I love Christ. They start torturing him and said, yes, I love Christ. Then they cut his hair off, no problem. I'm still happy. We just take it lightly like that. But imagine if someone comes here and say, are you a Christian? Just a question. I might even get scared because why is he asking that question? Is he going to harm me? And maybe if he takes something out of his pocket, a gun or something, are you a Christian? What am I going to do? We don't understand what these people went through. How strong are we in our faith? We saw, for example, recently the martyrs of the people that are going to the monastery of St. Samuel in Egypt. You know, we hear beautiful stories about young kids. There was a young boy. They killed his father and uncle and other relatives in front of him, and they came to him and said him say the Shahada, which is the Islamic, that he's a Muslim. He said, no, I'm a Christian. They didn't kill him. But look how strong the faith of a young boy is. How many of us as older Christians can stand up against such threats? We need to understand that we need to be courageous. We need to understand, we need to have that faith that we need to stand up and not to be conformed to the world. It's not going to happen with us in Australia, thank God. We live in a peaceful, beautiful country, but it doesn't mean that we need to relax and we need to take it easy. No, we need to stand for Christ. We need to show the people what Christ is really like through us. And the beautiful thing, the beautiful reward for someone to bring someone to church, to bring someone to Christ, it's this reward that will take us to heaven if we bring someone closer to Him. And you don't know how many people out there are hungry and thirsty for God. They just need someone to show them the way. Someone told them, this way will lead you to eternal life. This way will lead you to Christ. They only need that arrow to point them in that way. And that God can use me as that arrow, that sign to lead people to Christ. So we need to remember that we need to be like a floating boat on top of the world, in the world, doing our jobs, doing our normal day-to-day activities, but not let the world come in us and we don't get drowned with the world, but always to get our sun, our rays, our power from God. Because the part of the verse which I started with, he said, present your bodies a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. All has to start here. I need to make a decision. I need to say, who am I following? What are my priorities? I need to stop and think with my mind. I need to exercise judgment and say, where am I going? Where am I going? And as we're approaching the end of the year, it's a good time to reassess where we're going. And instead of just coming and celebrating the Feast of a Saint, this is done for us to wake us up and say, well, I want to be like Saint Mina as well. Why can't I be like Saint Mina? Why? Why can't I be like Daniel and his friends when he stood and he said, I'm not going to eat this food and drink this wine like the rest? Why can't I have that courage and stand up for what is right? Why do I need to follow the crowd? And I know that this way will lead me to destruction. But we said that God has equipped us. So never think that you're alone. Never think that it's too hard. If it's too hard, God would never ask us to love our enemies or to turn our cheeks or go a second mile. He would never ask us to do these tough things. But because He's equipped us with the sacraments, when you come and you get united with our Lord Jesus Christ through His body and blood sacrament of Holy Communion, when you get baptized and you get the Holy Maroon oil and the Holy Spirit comes and dwells inside you, what more do we want? God has given us everything, saying, now we go and work. I've given you the tools, now go out there and work and bring me some fruit. So we pray to God tonight that to help us to meditate on the life of Saint Mina and to learn from his beautiful virtues so we can all follow in his footsteps. Glory be to God forever. Any questions, anyone? You can ask questions because you didn't interact, so maybe you didn't follow me. Okay. No questions? No? Maybe unrelated? Doesn't have to be related to what I said. Is there a question? I hear someone? Oh, someone's scratching. Okay, someone's scratching. Okay, if no question, we'll just pray. Amen, hallelujah. Jesus Shenouti. O King of peace, grant us your peace, settle peace upon us, forgive us our sins, with you the power, the glory, the dominion forever. Amen. O Lord, hear us pray, thankfully, our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come. Give us today our daily bread, and give us our trespass against us. Let us temptation, but deliver us from evil. Jesus Christ, our Lord, for thine. And I love God the Father, grace of his only begotten Son, our Lord God and Savior, Jesus Christ, the gift and the Queen, the Holy Spirit be with you all. Go in peace, may peace of the Lord be with you all. Happy feast of Saint Mina. And now I can ask you, in the small church, they're going to be starting praises, so we're having tasbihah, and then they're starting the Mass at 11:30. So it'll be a combined liturgy in the small church to celebrate the feast of Saint Mina. So I encourage everyone to go and join them in the small church. And as you know, this is instead of a youth meeting, so we don't have a youth meeting. So that was it. So you've got an early night tonight. You can actually make announcements. We've got the youth lounge tomorrow, as usual. But we've announced it before. There's a special young women convention, a day which was going to happen on the 15th of December. It's across the whole diocese. All the young women are invited to attend. It's for young women only. And on Saturday, the 15th of December, there's a flyer that's been circulated, and the priest will be announcing in different liturgies. But it's basically on a Saturday, we pray the Mass together, and then after we have breakfast, we have talk, workshops, Q&A, lunch, panel. So it's a beautiful day. And basically the theme is empowering young women. So I encourage all young women to attend that. And if you need more information, please come and see me, but we'll have a flyer soon. But keep the 15th of December free. Okay, so from the morning to about 2 or 3 p.m. Okay, guys? So also on the 6th of December, on Thursday, we have the annual dinner to celebrate the Feast of the Church and Saint Mina. We're having a Dalton House, similar to last year. There'll be a Thursday night on the 6th of December. So please support your church. There's a fundraising for the church. I've got the tickets. So if you would like to contribute, please come and see me. Or you can get tickets from the book shop as well. Thank you, guys.